You know that small silver can, the blue, the red, the two bulls. You have seen it somewhere, on a racing car, on the back of a helmet, on a snowboard cutting through white air. Maybe you have held one, cold in your hand, that sharp, sweet smell when you open it. Red Bull is a drinks company. It makes one product, one drink, one can. But it owns a Formula One team. It sends athletes to jump from the edge of space. Its name is on stadiums, on helmets, on the hearts of millions of people who have never bought a single can. So the question is simple. How does a drink become a world? The story begins in 1982. A man named Dietrich Mateschitz stepped off a plane in Thailand. He was tired. His head hurt. He had been flying for many hours, and his body felt heavy and slow. He was not a famous man at that time. He worked for a German toothpaste company. He traveled a lot. He sold things. It was a quiet, ordinary life. But Thailand was about to change everything. Someone gave him a small bottle of a local drink. It was sweet. It was syrupy. It tasted a little strange. But after he finished it, something happened. The tiredness left. His head felt clear. His body felt alive again. The drink was called Krating Daeng. In Thai, those words mean Red Bull. Mateschitz was curious. He asked about the drink. He found out that it was very popular in Thailand. Workers drank it. Farmers drank it. Truck drivers drank it on long nights when they needed to stay awake. It was not a luxury drink. It was a working man's drink. Simple, cheap, effective. He walked through the streets of Bangkok that evening. The air was warm and thick with the smell of street food and motorbike smoke, and his mind was already moving fast. He thought, what if this drink could travel? What if it could leave Thailand and go to Europe? What if the right packaging, the right name, the right story could turn this small local bottle into something the whole world wanted? He went back to Austria. He contacted the Thai company that made Krating Daeng. He made a deal. He would take the recipe. He would change it a little, make it slightly lighter for Western tastes. He would put it in a new, slim silver can. And he would sell it. But he did not want to sell it the way other drinks were sold. No big supermarket deals. No television advertisements with smiling families. No discount offers. He had a different idea. A much more interesting idea. In 1987, the first Red Bull energy drink was sold in Austria. Dietrich Mateschitz owned half the company. The Thai family owned the other half. Together they had created something new. Not just a drink, a category. Before Red Bull, there was no such thing as an energy drink in the Western world. Mateschitz did not enter a market. He built one. That first year, they sold about 1 million cans. That number sounds big, but Mateschitz knew it was only the beginning. He had a plan. And the plan had almost nothing to do with the drink itself. My friends, if you are enjoying this story, please subscribe to Calm English Journeys. It helps us make more stories like this one for you. Just one small click means a great deal to us. Thank you so much. Most companies, when they have a new product, do the same thing. They buy advertisements. They pay for television spots. They put their name on billboards. They find a famous person and pay that person to smile and hold their product. Mateschitz looked at this system, and he walked away from it. He had a simple belief. He believed that people do not trust advertisements. They skip them. They ignore them. They forget them the moment the screen changes. But people do trust experiences. They trust what they feel. They trust what they see with their own eyes. So instead of telling people that Red Bull gives you energy, he decided to show them. He started small. He found young people who did extreme things. Skateboarders, windsurfers, cliff divers, people who pushed their bodies to the very edge of what was possible. He did not pay them to hold a can and smile. He paid them to do what they already loved. He just put the Red Bull name nearby. Then he went further. He created his own events. the Red Bull Flug Tag, a competition where ordinary people build homemade flying machines and launch them off a platform into water. It was silly. It was fun. Thousands of people came to watch. They laughed. They cheered. And everywhere they looked, they saw the Red Bull name. He created the Red Bull Rampage, one of the most dangerous mountain biking events in the world. Riders flew off Red Rock cliffs in the Utah desert, their tires barely touching the ground before the next drop. The crowd stood in the dust and the dry desert heat, hearts beating fast, eyes wide open. A young rider once said he did not think about the danger when he was in the air. He only thought about the next landing. That focus, that total commitment, that was exactly the feeling Red Bull wanted people to connect with its name. By the early 2000s, Red Bull was spending nearly a third of all its money on sports and events, not on traditional advertising, on experiences. And something interesting happened. Journalists wrote about the events. Television cameras followed the athletes. People shared the moments with their friends. Red Bull was getting enormous attention, and it was not paying for most of it. The stories were spreading by themselves because the events were genuinely exciting. This is now called content marketing. But in the 1990s, no one had a name for it. Machitz was simply following his instinct. He believed that if you create something worth watching, people will watch it, and if your name is on it, they will remember you. Red Bull was not buying attention. It was earning it. Step by step, event by event, the small silver can was becoming something much larger than a drink. It was becoming a symbol of speed, of courage, of going further than anyone thought possible. And the world was beginning to pay attention. But there was another side to this story, and it was not shown in the highlight videos. The Red Bull image was built on one idea: push further, go higher, be faster, never stop. It was exciting to watch, it was exciting to be part of, but for the people living inside that image, the pressure was enormous. Athletes signed with Red Bull because it gave them money, equipment, and a global stage. But it also gave them something heavier: an expectation. You were not just an athlete anymore. You were a Red Bull athlete, and Red Bull athletes did not play it safe. They did not choose the easier line down the mountain. They did not pull back when things felt dangerous. Some of them paid a very high price for that. In 2009, a young skier named Sarah Burke was fighting to get her discipline, superpipe skiing, into the Winter Olympics. She was one of the best in the world. She trained harder than almost anyone. She pushed every session to its limit. Red Bull supported her. The cameras followed her. The world watched. Then, in January 2012, during a training run in Utah, she fell. She hit the pipe. She did not get up. She was taken to hospital. She never recovered. She died 9 days later. She was 29 years old. The pipe was quiet after that. Just the sound of wind moving over empty snow. Her death shook the action sports world deeply. People asked hard questions. Was the culture of always pushing further, always going bigger, contributing to these tragedies? Were young athletes taking risks they might not have taken if the cameras were not watching? There were other costs too, not always so visible. Health organizations in several countries raised concerns about energy drinks. Some nations banned Red Bull entirely. France banned it for 12 years. Denmark banned it. Norway restricted it. They pointed to the high levels of caffeine and taurine. They worried about young people drinking too much, too fast, mixing it with alcohol. Doctors warned that the drink was not what its image suggested. The image said, limitless energy. The science said, temporary stimulation, with risks if overused. But the brand kept growing. Because the image was so strong that it was almost impossible to separate from the product. When people saw the silver can, they did not think about health warnings. They thought about cliff divers. They thought about Formula One cars screaming around corners. They thought about that feeling, that sharp electric feeling of being fully alive. The hidden cost of the Red Bull story is this: the brand sold a version of human possibility. Beautiful, thrilling, real in many ways, But it was also a version that asked people, real people with real bodies, to prove it again and again, and sometimes proving it came at a price that no amount of marketing could justify. Today, if you walk into a sports arena, you will see brand names everywhere, on the floor, on the walls, on the jerseys, on the helmets, inside the replays, between the highlights. The names are so familiar now that most people stop seeing them. They become part of the background, part of the atmosphere. This is not an accident. This is the world that Red Bull helped build. Before Red Bull, sponsorship existed. Companies put their names on stadiums. They paid for logos on racing cars. But Red Bull did something different. It did not just attach its name to existing events. It created its own world, its own athletes, its own media, its own stories. And when other companies saw how well it worked, they followed. Today, nearly every major brand has a content team, a team of people whose only job is to create experiences, videos, and events that feel exciting and real, not like advertisements. Nike has it. GoPro has it. Monster Energy built its entire identity by copying almost exactly what Red Bull had done first. In 2012, Red Bull did something that made the whole world stop. They sent a man named Felix Baumgartner up to the edge of space. He rose in a small capsule attached to a giant helium balloon. He went up 24 miles above the Earth. The air up there is almost nothing. The sky above him was black. The earth below him was curved and silent and impossibly beautiful. Then he jumped. He fell faster than the speed of sound. 8 million people watched live on YouTube. It was, at that time, the most watched live stream in internet history. Every single frame carried the Red Bull name. Red Bull did not buy that attention. It engineered it. A young marketing student in Seoul watched the jump from her laptop in a small university room, the screen bright in the darkness. She had never tasted Red Bull, but after that day, she told her friends she wanted to work for a company that thought like that. Not a company that sold things, a company that made people feel something. That reaction, that feeling, was exactly what Maciejczyk had been building toward for 30 years. By 2023, Red Bull was selling more than 12 billion cans every year. 12 billion. In more than 170 countries. It was the best-selling energy drink on the planet. But the number that mattered more to Maciejczyk was never the cans sold. It was the races won. The mountains climbed. The athletes supported. The moments created. Because he understood something early that most businesses learn too late. People forget prices. People forget product features. People forget advertisements almost the moment they end. But people remember how something made them feel. And Red Bull had spent decades making people feel one very specific thing. That somewhere inside them, there was something wilder, faster, and braver than their ordinary life allowed. Dietrich Mateschitz died in October 2022. He was 78 years old. He had spent 40 years building something that had never existed before. Not a drinks company, not a sports company, not a media company. Something that was all of these things at once, and none of them completely. He rarely gave interviews. He did not like the spotlight. For a man who built a brand on bold, loud, thrilling moments, he was a very quiet person in private. People who worked with him said he had one question he asked often. Not, how many cans did we sell? Not, what is our market share? His question was simpler. Is it interesting? That was his measure. Not profit, not efficiency. Interesting. It is a strange word to build a billion-dollar company around. But perhaps that is exactly the point. We live in a world full of things competing for our attention. Advertisements, notifications, headlines, offers. Most of them ask us to buy something. Most of them disappear from our memory within minutes. Red Bull asked something different. It did not say, buy this drink. It said, look at this moment. A man standing on the edge of space, a cyclist flying off a red-rot cliff, 2 homemade wings collapsing into cold river water while a crowd laughs and cheers. None of those moments needed a drink to be real. The courage was real, the skill was real, the beauty was real. But the name was always there, quietly, consistently, patiently. And over time, the name began to carry the feeling of those moments inside it, so that when someone picked up a small silver can in a petrol station at 2 in the morning, tired and needing to drive further, they were not just buying caffeine. They were buying a feeling they had seen 1,000 times. A feeling that said, you can go further than you think. Whether that is true or not is a question worth sitting with. But here is a small, quiet thing to consider. Somewhere right now, a young person is watching a video of an athlete doing something that does not seem possible. Their heart is beating a little faster. Their eyes are wide, and in the corner of the screen, small and red and steady, are two bowls facing each other. The drink is almost forgotten. The feeling remains. Leave a comment below, my friends. Tell me, have you ever bought something not for what it was, but for how it made you feel? I read every comment. I would love to know your story. And that is our story for today, my friends. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it helped you learn something new. Keep listening. Keep growing. And I will see you again very soon in our next story. Take care, my friends. Goodbye.